Happy 4th, everyone. Welcome to Bright Blue Stars podcast and YouTube channel. Since the horrendous murder of Mr. Floyd, America is going through a movement of transformation for racial equality and justice for all. In today's episode, we will discuss in some depth some issues related to the debate over racial equality and the possible solutions. Also, I want to point out that Trump's use of racial slurs and his attitude of dividing the American people are seriously worrisome in this period of time, like what's going in the country. And my guests today are Don Dean, a 50 years member of the Soka Gakkai International, or SGI, which is a Buddhist movement that stands for human dignity and world peace. Also, we have Bruce McGraw, the author of The Magical Universe, neomythology.com, which is also a book. I believe he has, made them in 2 books. And let me start with Don today. So, Don, my first question would be, what stands behind racism in America, or even the world? But I believe that we should focus on America. I know that racism is like a universal thing, but it is worse in some other places. But what are the sources of racism?
So, according to Buddhist thought, the main cause of racism is the fact that people do not respect the dignity of other humans, and one of the main purposes of our Buddhist practice is to recognize within us that each person is what we call a potential Buddha. That we all have this potential for and being an enlightened person inside of us, and then when we recognize it inside of each of us individually, then we can see it in other people. And so it's our feeling that there is a lack of that kind of feeling toward other people, that people are failing to recognize the inherent dignity that every human life has. And and unfortunately it seems to have devolved into some kind of a tribal, almost, a lot of people are calling it tribalism.
Yeah.
But we would just call it a simple lack of respect for human dignity.
Yes. So, can I ask you if this is like, if that has some like religious beliefs behind it, historical long traditions in history?
From within the Buddhist teachings, this was taught by Shakyamuni Buddha about 3,000 years ago originally, and in his teachings it was manifest most strongly and most succinctly, I guess you could say, in one of his last major teachings called the Lotus Sutra.
Yes.
And so the Lotus Sutra is the basis of our practice, and that we practice within SGI USA.
Yes.
So so it's been quite a long time. And so the thing that was really radical about the Lotus Sutra, which as I mentioned was pretty close to 2000, 3,000 years ago, and I'll get the exact amount of time for you.
Yes.
But that long ago, what people did believe, and other faiths, especially Hinduism that preceded the Buddhist thought, is that people had to be go through lifetime after lifetime to be able to have that kind of a life condition. But the thing that was radical in the Lotus Sutra is that actually Shakyamuni revealed for the first time that actually every human being has that potential now.
Yes.
And another thing that was kind of radical about the Lotus Sutra at that time was that he said that this was shared equally by both men and women. And up until that time, women in Indian culture, many other cultures, women were basically not just second class citizens, but even below second class citizens.
Yes.
And so for him to say that not just every human being, but also and including women at that time have this potential to achieve enlightenment, to manifest their Buddha nature, that was a very radical statement for that time. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Bruce, let me ask you the same question. So, what do you think about the sources or, the reasons behind racism?
I would say that, and I like the term Don used was tribalism.
Yes.
It seems to me racism and tribalism, I mean, racism is sort of one version of tribalism, has been with us since the dawn of humanity. I mean, it seems like we grew up and, we came out into tribes, these small little groups, and it was always sort of natural to be suspicious of other tribes. They looked a little different, they acted a little different, maybe they had slightly different beliefs. There was always us and them. And I think, racism's a tribal belief, but, as we know, we can make differences not only over race, but religion and gender and nationality, and we can come up with all kinds of isms in which to divide us into us and them. And it seems like that's sort of a natural thing that human beings have. So I kind of agree with Don also that, we grow up in that. So I think what's happening now is it's coming to the forefront because of globalism. And so it's like globalism all of a sudden has taken all of these different ideas and beliefs and different people who look different and think different, and it's crushed us all together. And it's like people just are not used to having so much difference in their life, and they're scared and they're afraid of these differences. And so it's sort of they're lashing out now. And to me, this is, we're in this critical period, but it's sort of like, I don't know, boil where the infection comes to the skin and it's getting ready to be exposed and healed. And it's sort of like, this is the period in a way we have to go through. And, nobody wanted Trump as a president, but what Trump has done is brought up all these, well, not, I wouldn't say nobody, but Trump has brought up all these feelings to the surface to expose them to the light. And I think finally, because of, what happened to George Floyd and a lot of other Black people and whatnot, this has really touched the conscience of people to actually see how this racism is played out. And I think it's, in a way, it's a very positive thing. And especially it's positive because it seems like the trend in consciousness among people is to reject this kind of thing, that's not really who we are as people. So I think it's part of the evolutionary process. It's been around. I think we're at the precipice of a big evolutionary leap in humanity. And this is sort of like all the addicts and all this crap in our basement or attic that needs to be cleaned out. And it's just being brought to the surface and, and getting exposed. And hopefully it's going to get eradicated. And, I think if we're going to get through this crisis, we're going to come out of it as totally different kinds of human beings. We're not going to be these kind of human beings anymore. I believe we're like on an evolutionary edge here where we're going to evolve ourselves into a different type of being. In fact, I think we're going to survive this and climate change and all the other problems we have in the world. We have to become different types of human beings. And this is sort of our call to to make this last evolutionary stand, or I think we're just going to crumble down in our hatred. So I think it's been with us, and it's negative, but it's positive. And we're living on the cutting edge right now. It's an exciting time to be alive, and we'll see what happens.
Yes, life is an adventure. Sometimes I
Right.
see it. Yeah, and okay, Dan. Don, we have been talking before we start recording about um, the similarity between states and nations with individuals, like how as individuals we evolve into maturity and we become aware of our wrongdoings in the past, our childhood, teenage wrongdoings. So is it possible that America as a nation could get more mature and go over Trump? Can we pass this hate speech that is rife right now?
Yeah, so one of the things we do have to realize is that the roots of racism, they run really, really deep. They run really, really deep. And it's been something that's been with us for a long, long time. And so like Ikeda Sensei, he's my mentor in our Buddhist practice. He writes that the roots of racism run deep, and that movements to fan racial hatred for political, economic, or religious advantage are always with us. And the seriousness of this problem lies in that it is so closely tied to people's spiritual and emotional desires. So, in other words, we might say that the desire for an identity, to know where one came from and where one is going, lies at the root of racism. And so, and he also goes on to mention that people cannot withstand a vacuum of ideas. A philosophical and ideological void drives people to seek their identity in race.
Yeah.
And this is from one of his writings called the Wisdom of the Lotus Sutra.
Yes.
So yeah,
So,
I don't know if that touches on what you wanted me to
yes.
discuss, but yeah.
Yeah, and as you told me before that as it's possible that we can go to maturity, it is also that sometimes we go backward. But I believe Ross thinks that even going backward a little bit, it creates a stronger push to go forward. So I don't know if you guys agree on that point, or how you see it done. Okay, can you answer that for me? Do you think that it is a going backward a little bit so we can go forward more?
I think so. And so in another one of the writings that we look at a lot, it's written by Nichiren Daishonin, and he wrote his writings are called Gosho, and in one of his writings he talks about the lion, and that the lion takes one step back before it springs. I think is either 2 steps or 3 steps forward.
Yes.
And I believe that this can be what's happening, but it depends on people. It depends on us and how we react to this time.
Yes.
And then so to quote Martin Luther King, he says that he wrote in a speech called "The Other America" that in the final analysis, racism is evil because its ultimate logic is genocide. And if one says that I am not good enough to live next door to him, if one says that I'm not good enough to eat at a lunch counter or have a good, decent job or to go to school with him merely because of my race. He is saying consciously or unconsciously that I do not deserve to exist.
Yes.
And then he declared that all that needs to happen for evil to prevail is that good men do nothing. And so it feels like people are deciding at this point in time, to do something, not do nothing. But you know, we have to see. We have to hope, and I have deep hope that this can be the starting point for a great change for the future.
That was a good point. I will come to that point, which like I have some issues with the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King, for example, he was a great man, but I see that his appeal to Christianity is also problematic, and I'll come to that later. But okay, what do you think, Boris, about? You teach philosophy, and do you think that we can go backward a little bit? Like Trump came on the scene, things get bad, but that will be a step to for us. Open the door for us to step forward again.
Yeah, I think that's often the way it happens. I don't think it has to happen like that.
Yeah.
I think if we were more enlightened people, we wouldn't need that.
Yes.
But it seems like when I look at the political scene, that Hillary and sometimes when the Democrats get into power, people sort of relax and they go, oh, everything's okay, a Democrat's in power. And things just kind of go along and everybody doesn't really pay any attention. And, and I think we're heading, my big issue is climate change right now,
yes,
which I think dwarfs everything. And I wished Hillary had won over Trump, but there was always this fear in me that, it's sort of like Obama. Obama did a lot for climate change, but he didn't do enough. He didn't go far enough. And so I was a little bit afraid if Hillary got in there, she would continue on in the Paris climate, summit and move on in areas improving our greening our economy and energy and whatnot, but she probably wouldn't go far enough. And then you always hear, well, she's doing better than before, but it's not good enough. And so we need something more radical. And so would Hillary have been more radical? I don't know. If Biden gets elected, will he be radical enough? I don't know. It's scary to me. But we know Trump, if he gets reelected, his plan is probably history, for sure. It could be history even with Biden in there, but with Trump, we know for sure. So it seems like we get complacent. And so somebody like Trump sneaks in there and kind of wakes everybody up. And sometimes you just need that shock therapy to wake up and realize how bad things really are. Because Trump is so bad in so many areas that people are just waking up to how bad not only he is, but how bad things are. Because getting rid of Trump is just the first step. Then there's so much more to do after that. And so I think often because of our complacency and our ignorance, it's like things have to get really bad before they move forward. But it doesn't have to be like that. If we were more aware and enlightened and paid more attention, we wouldn't need these shock attacks. So I think, and that's true, I think, in our own lives. Sometimes we kind of go along for a while thinking things are okay. I don't really need to make a big change. They're not great, but they're okay. And then some crisis hits and we realize, we need to make a big change. So sometimes crises are needed for this change, but I don't think it's necessary.
Yes.
Most of the time, though, it seems to be required. Just human nature to kind of skate along if things are okay.
So Trump seems like doing the good job without knowing it. So it's maybe he is like the catalyst, or as you said, like it just opened our eyes to the wrong stuff there because, you know, like he's always on the TV. Everybody, I mean, he's the incarnation of racism, like in power, because it used to be the racist on the street, so nobody pays attention, but now the racist in power, so we all can see the bad effects. My next question would be, okay, but before asking this question, I like to point to a problematic element that I found in Christianity, and both Islam and Judaism also have the same problem. When Jefferson Davis, who was the president of the Confederate States of America, which was fighting for the preservation of slavery, he went through a tragic experience as his grandson fell from the second floor of his home and died after a few days of agony. Jefferson Davis did not interpret the tragic incident as God's warning for the sin of slavery, let's say, and that's exactly what happened, but probably he interpreted as God's atonement that will be his salvation. Why I believe that? Because he wrote a 1,000 pages memoir defending his position after the end of the American Civil War. So a Christian can interpret reality as he wishes. And here is the question. If we say that Christianity is behind racism, a disease that she was okay with for about 2,000 years, and can Buddhism be a better alternative from Christianity?
Well, all I can do is speak to my own, personal experience with that, and
Yes.
and ultimately, and it's not so much that one religion is better than another, but the the basic tenet of this, having this deep respect for individual human life, that is at the core of Buddhist teachings, has really helped me in so many ways, and helped me see things differently from when I was practicing Christianity. I was raised a Catholic. I was went to 12 years of Catholic school, and I remember at one point, I was seeing an African American young woman for a brief time, and the kind of crazy thing was, I don't know why, but the priest in my parish called me into his office to tell me to not see her. and, and I was flabbergasted that a priest would do that. Yeah. And apparently some other parishioners had complained to him, and I thought that was like very strange. And so that's just my own personal experience. Other people have experienced other things, and maybe even have experienced the opposite of that. But the thing that I've really learned so deeply in my Buddhist practice is to look at myself, and to root out whatever negativity exists within my own life, and to not not blame other people for the negative thoughts and feelings that I have, but instead to reflect on it in that light that all human life deserves to be treated with the utmost of dignity and respect.
Okay, Don, let me stop you here a little bit, but I want to ask you here. I'm serious about this because I have studied the Bible, and I know, for example, the Old Testament has stories of genocide and how God orders Moses and later David and other kings to go and kill entire people, like different tribes and kingdoms. He even asked them to wipe out even the animals. And as far as I know, the Buddha never has kind of teaching at his thought or his way.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know if you've ever heard the story of King Ashoka.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and tell
Yeah.
us about
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. King Ashoka. He was a king in India, and I think he appeared somewhere about 100 or so years after Shakyamuni,
Yeah.
and so he expanded the borders of India quite a bit through conquest and war, but he came to hate war, and in fact he became disgusted by war, and he converted to Buddhism, and he was in human history, according to H.G. Wells, who wrote a history about King Ashoka. He was the first monarch in human history to renounce war as a method of expanding their state. And so this is the result. This is the result of Buddhist teaching, that people tend to end war, tend to not kill people to get what they want, and unfortunately in Christianity is a long bloody history of people fighting wars for one reason or another that or profess to be Christian.
Yeah. Actually, all the Abrahamic religions do. I mean, all the three religions have a violent history. Okay, let me go to Ross. I don't know if I see that American professors, researchers, they tend to avoid the discussion of the relation between, or most of them, I mean, not all, some people do discuss that, the relation between Christianity and racism. I feel that many people see it as a sensitive topic. They try to avoid it, but I want to put it under light here. And so what you can tell me, Bruce, about this issue?
Christianity and racism?
Yeah. And I hope you just say, you'll be honest about it.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I think when we look at Christianity, we have to separate, when I want to look at what the true teachings of Christianity are, I go back and read, the parables of Jesus. I listen to Jesus's teachings.
Yes.
I can't, that people can misinterpret his teachings in all kinds of these violent ways, to me, is not an attack against Christianity per se. I mean, it would be like if you wrote a book professing all kinds of positive things, but then people took your ideas from your book and went out and slaughtered people and said, well, they're justified by Sohel's book. He said this, this, and this is how I interpreted it. And then we went and said, well, your book is really terrible because look at all the things it's causing. And you would say, that wasn't my intention. Those people misinterpreted me. I'm not, that's not because of what I said. And so I think that's what's happening with Christians. I think Jesus, he said, love your neighbor as yourself. I mean, who is your neighbor? We're all neighbors of each other.
Yeah.
So I think that I don't think that's what Jesus was teaching. And I don't think a lot of Christians buy into that. But obviously, as you said, the three Abrahamic religions tend to trend towards a fanaticism. And,
Yes.
and that's just, I think it's the level of the follower. And I don't think it's the religion's fault. I think it's the followers. They misinterpret things. I mean, America has great ideals, but people can start turning it inward and turning it into an ideology, and and it can even move some people standing for the flag are moving it towards fascism. That doesn't mean that the ideals of America are bad. It's just that some people are not at a certain level to understand the deeper meanings of these ideas. So I have a little problem with just lumping Christianity in with racism, although there's no doubt there's a lot of Christians that are racist. And I would agree also that I think Christianity sort of sets itself up, maybe, and the Abrahamic religion set himself up more so than Buddhism. And I think one of the problems with Christianity was that Jesus, he only lived for a couple of years after he supposedly reached his enlightenment and started teaching. He really only taught for a couple of years, whereas the Buddha taught for 45 years. Yes. And so he had a chance to develop his ideas and he could come up with this, wonderful program of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, and taught people how to move towards this kind of closed-minded sectarian views into much more open, enlightened views. Christianity, I don't know imagine if Jesus had lived 45 years and taught, what would have happened? I think we would have had a totally different religion. It would have been much harder to misinterpret that religion had he been able to teach for 45 years. Yes. But, he died. He died a relatively young man in his early 30s, so, that's still pretty young. And, I think that had a lot of effect to it. And I think a lot of people have come along and misinterpreted his teaching so that for a lot of what we see in Christianity isn't really what Jesus was teaching. Because I think if you take a look at it, the Buddha's sayings and Jesus' saying, you put them side by side, I think they replicate each other because they're wisdom teachings. And I think they're saying the same thing, ultimately, as all wisdom teachers are.
Yes, but don't you think that also Jesus is problematic in a sense that because he emphasized sometimes that we should go back to the Old Testament, and the Old Testament is true, the word of God, like nothing will go away without being fulfilled. Don't you think that Jesus also put us again in a problem when he says that?
Well, I think Jesus was more, when he was reading parts of the Old Testament, which, actually I don't think got finalized until after he actually died, but yes. He was mostly impressed by the prophets in the Old Testament. And the prophets, were speaking about justice and God's justice and standing up to kings saying, you have to give people equal rights and justice and whatnot. And, we're often killed for that. So I think Jesus wasn't so much taken by the whole Old Testament, but there's certain aspects of the Old Testament, the Hebrew scriptures, that he did embrace. But I don't know that he talked about all the violence that you were talking about, because you're right. I mean, that's in there.
Yeah.
And it's a vindictive God in there, so it's a difficult one.
Yes. Yeah, it is ironic, like how the Old Testament can be a book of love, and we can see like it is the God of the Old Testament looks like Hitler to me more than anything. And
yeah, he's the worst terrorist out there. I mean,
exactly.
No terrorist has done what he's done.
Yeah, and that has an effect also on Islam, because if you read the Quran, it always refers to the Torah and Moses. So it's again the same problem going on there. And I just want to tell you here that I have a theory. I didn't develop it much yet, but I think that Jesus as a person never existed. I think that Jesus was a conspiracy made by some atheists who wanted to kill the Old Testament God, and they come up with Jesus, the God who dies on the cross. And if you go to the Gospel of Mark, the story ends with Jesus' death. There is nothing about his return. But some people just turned it into a different story later. Anyway, I mean, that's a theory I'm trying to work on. And but let me go back to Don. Okay, American needs, I know, like many people do everywhere. Some people cannot live with atheism, and like they say that atheism brings nothingness, like that the end will be emptiness. That's all. So I think that Buddhism has this spiritual side that it could be a kind of like a better way than at least this major Christianity. I'm not saying all Christians, because there are Christians who are open-minded and very humble and very human. But can you tell me more about why you think that your way is a good choice for American people?
The ultimate thing that I feel that that we have to offer is hope. And hope of changing our lives for the better, and also because one of our teachings is called Ichinen Sanzen. Ichinen Sanzen means 3,000 worlds in a momentary existence of life. 3,000 worlds. And so the way it works out is we say that we all live in 10 worlds. And so the 10 worlds are hell, hunger, anger, animality, the world of human beings, which is tranquility, the world of heavenly beings, which is rapture, and then there's the world of what they call voice hearers, which is actually the world of learning, and then there's the cause awakened ones, which means the world of I'm trying to look up the exact wording for it. Anyways, yeah. So the cause awakened ones are realization, the world of realization, and then the two highest worlds are Bodhisattva and Buddha. And so Bodhisattvas are people that delay their enlightenment in order to help other people, and then Buddha is this enlightened state. And so we said that these are your 10 basic worlds, and then you can be in any of the other of the 10 worlds at any moment. You can jump back and forth. And so that's 100 different worlds potentially you can be in at any one moment. And then we say that there's 10 factors. I'm not going to explain all of those, but there's 10 factors of life. These are areas of life that you project your life condition into. And so that's another 10. So that's 1,000 potential worlds that you can be in at the one particular time. And then we say that there's 3 different realms, and so the realm of yourself, the realm of society, and then the realm of the environment. And so that's where we get 3,000 worlds in a momentary existence of life. But the point of all of that is that even if you're in a state of hell, even if you're in a state of anger, you can have the potential still to become a Buddha. and then you can even have enlightened anger. You can have anger, be angry at something for a good reason, for instance. So
For justice.
yeah, and so I think that that's just such an incredible message of hope that we have in our Buddhist philosophy.
Yeah. So just to make it like clear for the viewers, when you say hell and you say these stuff, like, you don't refer to an actual hell, you refer to a human situation, right?
Yes, a state of hell. Yeah, thank you for helping me clarify that.
Yeah.
But I mean, and that's the other thing that I think is very profound about Buddhist thought, is that we don't say that heaven and hell are places, different places that you go after you die, and then heaven and hell are within our daily life, and and you can be in a hellish state in your daily life, or you can be in this enlightened state. So you have the potential for both.
Well, let me ask Bruce a question, and I will bring this question to you also. Okay, Bruce, what do you think if somebody says that if America was not Christian, or at least like majority Christian, we wouldn't have seen the American Revolution or this democracy, even like despite the negatives of American history, of course. But they would argue that if we were Buddhists, for example, we wouldn't have the American Revolution. So what do you think about that?
We wouldn't have the American Revolution if we were Buddhists, so we would still be under England? Is that what you're
saying? Yes. I mean, that's a question. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I guess because you're thinking Buddhism is nonviolent, so they wouldn't have
revolution and
colonialism. You know, there's all kinds of, I'm not sure, there's all kinds of nonviolent protests. I know during the Vietnam War, a lot of Buddhists were protesting, the government in South Vietnam. Some of them set themselves on fire as protest to the violence and whatnot. It could have been a revolution of a different type.
Yes.
But I think, if you stand for human dignity and you feel like you have an oppressive government that's taken away that dignity, I think people need to stand up in one way or another. And you can do that violently, you can do that non-violently, you can do it in many ways. So I think it's just hard to say. It's a hypothetical, and I don't know what to really do with that hypothetical.
Yes.
So who knows? Who knows what would have happened?
I mean, okay, even about future, that if America becomes a Buddhist nation, let's assume, would it be a better nation than what we have right now? I mean, could that be an answer?
Well, I don't know. I mean, just to say that, what are you going to try to force people to become Buddhists?
No.
That's a good idea. If the culture itself, if people started opening up and embracing Buddhism on their own, then that's fine. I think that that's okay.
No. What I'm trying to say is that, okay, I'm saying that one of the phenomenon I interpreted the rise of Trump. One of the phenomenon is that reasons is that, for example, if you go and search out for flat earthers, for example, you will see most of them are Trump followers, Republicans. So they are totally disconnected with reality. So I think that is a phenomenon that shows that Christianity actually is dying slowly with the rise of science. So the more scientific we become, the less Christians we are. And I think that one of the reasons I see all this anger among Republicans and Trump's followers, they are angry about something, And I recognize, I mean, that's my interpretation, is that Christianity is dying slowly. So that's why I think maybe there will be a time when most people will become Buddhist or enjoy a way of Buddhism. And not has to be Don's way, like the SGI. It could be other types of Buddhism or spirituality or scientific spirituality, who knows. So yeah, well, that's why I was asking this question.
Well, I would say, I don't know that I think Christianity needs to go through a rebirth.
Okay.
I think it needs to get back to the teachings of Jesus. So I think again, you talk about the Republicans, this notion of, I guess it's sort of a faith, but it seems like they're hypocrites because they're violating their faith all the time.
Yes.
So I think hopefully that brand of Christianity is going to become extinct. But
Yes.
I think there is a brand of Christianity that can blend into the modern world and blend in with science. And I think there are many sophisticated Christians. In fact, I'm just taking a course now on Thomas Aquinas from Matthew Fox. And Thomas Aquinas, even in the Middle Ages, was embracing science. He embraced Aristotle and he embraced philosophy and certain pagan beliefs. And so Matthew Fox, who used to be a Christian priest, I guess it was, and got excommunicated because of his beliefs. So there is this movement, I think, in Christianity. It's a revolution, and I think in some ways, even the new Pope is sort of an example of that because he's so much more open to other issues. He's not like the old Catholic popes. So whether he's a flash in the pan, or they're going to go back to a more conservative one, or they're actually going to open up Christianity more. Christianity is going through a big change right now too, and we'll see how it comes out at the other side. But yeah, I mean, Buddhism has a lot to offer, and if people voluntarily want to become Buddhist, I think that's great. I think that could be a great benefit to society. But I think, the whole thing is on the individual, and however the individual has to deal with, in the end, their own stuff. And Buddhism is one way to deal with that, but I think there's other ways to deal with that. And we need to become better human beings. And whatever path the individual finds that fulfills that for him, that's what they have to do. I don't want to make it so blanket that, it's just Christianity that we have to overcome. There's certain views of Christianity, I think, that need to be overcome. But
I know what you are trying to say is that I see that, for example, I can't argue that, for example, that all Christians are the same, of course, because just for an example, Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't believe in hell. I mean, that's just an example of how big difference could be, like between one Christian and another. But I'm trying to focus on the Christian church that adopted a creed. Like they have certain creeds that you cannot violate, or you are not free to violate. Like if you say that I don't believe in hell, they will tell you, well, then you are doomed. I mean, I think, that kind of Christianity could be problematic. And let me come to you, Don. I think, I mean, that's my belief, that Buddhism is good in a way, is that it made me feel free when I come to it, study it. I don't feel worried because it never tells me you should believe in God or not. It just focuses on yourself. So can you tell the American people and our viewers, maybe in the whole world, why you believe this way is better than any other way? I mean, it's okay. I mean, you should do that because I believe you see it as the best way. That's why you are a Buddhist. So,
well,
go ahead.
I want to back up for just 1 minute and what
ahead.
we were discussing a little bit earlier, and that Christianity and science are not mutually exclusive. Some of the greatest scientists of all time were Christian. And so it doesn't, just because you're Christian doesn't mean that you don't believe in science, or it isn't a Christian thing to not believe in science. However, it is the result of ignorance that when people discovered certain things, that people that just happened to be Christian, persecuted them. In history, one of the greatest examples of that is Galileo. And when he challenged the theory that that the Earth was not the center of the universe, and that he was persecuted by Christians at that time, right? But the crazy thing is that the what they were believing was not necessarily even a Christian belief. What they were believing and promulgating was something that was believed by the ancient Greeks, and so it was a matter of ignorance. And so I don't think that Christianity itself excludes science. But why do I think that Buddhism is best? It's been best for me as far as my own personal life. I've been able to use this practice to grow as a human being, and I've benefited in so many ways. I've benefited spiritually, and I've benefited physically, and I've benefited financially, and in every aspect of my life, I've benefited based on my Buddhist practice, and the things that I've learned in applying my Buddhist practice. So, like Bruce and I are fellow professors at Cuyamaca College. I'm very proud of that, and I also teach at Miracosta College. And my last time that they did it, the student evaluations, I got I was able to obtain like a perfect, almost near perfect evaluation from my students, and I had never gotten that high of an evaluation before, and I really attribute it to my Buddhist practice, because I started looking at my students very differently, and seeing their inherent, thinking about their inherent Buddha nature, and especially knowing that everybody was suffering so much, that we were all mutually suffering during this time, that I started taking a very different approach toward how I interacted with my students. And I feel it was because I grew as a human being, and through my Buddhist practice. And so that, and because I had a good evaluation from my students, they wanted to keep me on as an instructor, which benefited me, financially, and gave me something really valuable to do with my life. I enjoy doing that. So that's just one example. Another is for my day job. Again, I've had various different kinds of struggles in my life, and a few years ago I had a tremendous struggle with some health problems, and I was out of work for about a year while I was recovering, and in essence I had to almost like relearn how to walk at that time. And so because I took all that time off from work, when I got done, I didn't have a job. And so I used my Buddhist practice to help me. And so one of the things that we say is that you can chant this chant that we have, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, for the things that you want to accomplish in your life. And that if you are sincere and you really focus when you're doing that, then you will see these things happen. And so, I really attribute that, being able to do that, to being able to recover fully from my health challenges, and then find a new fantastic job and that I have now. And I found this job at the age 65.
Yes.
And whether I was chanting or not chanting, when I found it, I can't say. But the thing that the chanting helped me with was it gave me the hope, the confidence, and the courage to do it, to go for it, and not give up, and to and then also to have the confidence that I could do the work and do it well. And so, I think that because I felt that way, that I was able to become hired and work in this new job. And I also through my Buddhist practice, I've learned the value of doing well in everything that you do, in both your work and in your relationships with other people. And so, I really applied myself in my work based on the encouragement that I received from my practice, and felt that I could win. I had this sense of being able to win. And recently, I was given a promotion and a big raise in pay. And that was not what I wasn't chanting for a promotion or a raise in pay, but it was just, I think it's a byproduct of the fact that I had this joyful spirit based on my Buddhist practice. I had this joyful spirit, and whenever they asked me to do anything, I say, yes, I can do it. And so I feel that
positive.
I think that because of that I've been able to be successful. And so I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
But
Thank you, Don. And that's really good to hear. And okay, Bruce, also before we end this episode, I will ask you this question, and maybe Don also can answer it. Do you think that we can find scientific solutions for our social problems and all this haze going on? Could science be the answer still?
No, I don't think science. This is not really the area of science. I don't think science would really. This is not a scientific problem. I think it's more of a moral problem that we're going through now. Moral issues.
Can science deal with morality also?
I don't know. I don't personally. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think one area I think science can come in maybe to help us out is just the fact that when it studies the human body, we all basically are wired the same. Doesn't matter what our color is or our race or religion or anything else, we're all the same. And so other than maybe a very slight thin pigment of skin color, we're all the same everywhere. We've got the same organs, we've got the same brain, they work the same, everything's the same. So I think science tells us, it's not like we're different species. It's not like this one species of race over here, we should have a different name for it or something. It's like it's another species, but we're all the human species. So I think in that way, science can come along and support, what I think is a moral revolution that we need. But I think we're dealing more with a moral issue than a scientific issue. I think it's outside. I think morality, in some sense, is outside the realm of science. And so I would say
I
think that would be a good topic for another interview.
It certainly would. So and Buddhist teaching. The one thing that's also really I love about Buddhist teachings is it does not contradict science in the least. And because Buddhism, Buddhist thought, Buddhist philosophy is based on the law of cause and effect. That we say that if you do something good, something good will happen in return. If you do something bad will happen in return. And I think that where science can really, really, really help us is in helping to develop a vaccine for the COVID-19 virus that's
Yes.
so deeply and horribly affecting society. But where science cannot help is in helping people want to get the vaccine. And so like right now, there's about apparently there's about a third of the population that has already said they would never take the vaccine if it's offered to them. And so, so this, in one of our writings called it's called the Risho and Kokuran, which is also securing the peace of the land. That in that writing, Nichiren Daishonin says that the basic problem of humanity are that people are poisoned by the three poisons of greed, anger, and foolishness, and that the only thing that can root those out is to adopt this idea that every human life is precious and every human being has inherent dignity. So this is what's needed for this age, and I think that morality going hand in hand with scientific discovery will be what really
A
pulls
great achievement.
yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I would also say
Yeah,
and get
go ahead.
we have the vaccine, but the morality comes in because the vaccine is just the vaccine, but the morality comes in. There's also, I mean, there's the group, the anti-vaxxers that Don was talking about,
Yes.
but then there's the moral question of who's going to get it. Are we going to charge it? Are only the rich people going to get it? Are we going to make it open and free for everybody? That's the
Yes.
moral issue that has to come in. You know, science is just science, but morality comes with how you use science. You use technology. Technology itself is neither good nor bad. It's how we use the technology and what kind of technology we create that is what's good or bad.
I could not agree with you more, Bruce.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate seeing you today, and I believe we will have a great time if we make another episode. And I don't know, like I like the topic of science and morality. It's very challenging and interesting also.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.